What's up, guys? Today we're going to take a look at the new 2110 converter 3x3G from Blackmagic. We're going to see if we can really use it as a stage box. And what is a stage box? The ability to put a box over by the stage and run one cable, whether that's Ethernet or fiber or whatever you want it to be, and run all of your signals both to and from stage. Normally I have to run maybe 6 SDIs to get everything I want to and from stage. I'm going to see if I can do it with just one Ethernet cable using 2 of these converters. So there's a couple things I want to test. Can I actually use it as a stage box? Which, spoiler alert, it works. Then, what is the latency like? Is it going to be a problem? Basically, if you wave your hand on stage and then on the iMag projector screens, is it going to wave a second later, 2 seconds? Is it going to be negligible, pretty much instant? What is that latency really going to look like to and from stage? And finally, reliability and ease of use. Is this thing easy to use? Is it going to cause me problems? Is it going to black out in the middle of a show? Let's check it out. So this is the 2110 IP converter here. You can see it's a little bit larger than some of their other units of this size. So in their 1/3, this right here is a multi-view, same size as their 4K web presenter. And it's definitely a little bit deeper, as you can see back here, but that's not really a problem. It still only takes up 1/3. So for the stage box test, I've set up 3 monitors here. These are receiving feeds from stage. I have one of these converters up on stage as well. And basically I have 3 feeds coming into this system going to stage. You can see one on the LED wall behind me, the other one on the TV, and then there's also a confidence monitor. This is pretty normal because I would normally have a video wall backdrop, maybe projectors or more LED wall on the sides for PowerPoint, iMag, things like that. And then I'd have at least 1, if not 2 confidence monitors. One of those confidence monitors is usually a duplicate of either the projection screens or the LED wall. So I'm not too concerned that I only have 3 feeds going to stage. I can definitely make that work by splitting that feed going to the projectors or LED wall to that second confidence monitor. So let's talk about the feeds coming back to me. Definitely a laptop on stage. We always run a laptop, a podium line, just in case. Even if we don't plan to use it, we always run it. So having that in this one cable is really nice. Another thing we tend to do is have a camera either on stage or right off stage pointing at the audience. We call this our crowd shot. Basically, when you have audience Q&A, you don't want to be looking at the back of their head when we're live streaming. So we have a camera on stage. This could be a PTZ camera, could be a manned camera. Either way, we have a camera facing the audience, so when they ask questions, when we need an audience reaction, we have that angle. And I don't always need a 3rd line running from stage to front of house, but I could see the ability to have a camera pointing at either a table or desk, or maybe there's 2 laptops on stage, and run that line back to front of house. So this is the box I would put either at the stage, behind the stage, under the stage, doesn't really matter. But basically I have 3 lines coming into here. I have the laptop, camera 1 and camera 2. This all goes to front of house. Then coming from front of house, where our tech table would be, I have the other 3 lines. I have the video wall backdrop, I have a projector or TV, that could be iMag, your PowerPoint, whatever, and then you have your confidence monitor feed here. Again, 1 cable, this is working pretty well. One thing I noticed is you can view the feeds coming from front of house here. And I was just clicking around and I realized if I double click, I can now see the feeds I'm sending from the stage to there. So this is a great way to troubleshoot if I'm getting signal to and from something. Just double click any of these buttons here and it's going to switch from an input to an output view. That's a really nice feature that you don't even get for some of these other stage boxes like your Allen & Heath consoles, any sort of audio or lighting. You can kind of see if you're getting signal coming to or from the unit, but being able to see the video feeds right on here and being able to troubleshoot that is really, really convenient. So one of my tests with ease of use is what happens when this thing loses power. Inevitably, people are unplugging, plugging things in during setup. How hard is this going to be to play with when I'm on site? So what I'm going to do is pull the power to this unit here. I'm going to plug it right back in. And what I'm interested in to see how long it takes for this to reconnect to my front of house rig that is currently on. Is there going to be a problem? I'm interested to see if this is going to auto-connect, if all the feeds are going to automatically come back to where they should be. If so, that means I can have these pre-configured all the time, one for stage, one for front of house, and it looks like I have signal popping up here. And so this is interesting. I have 2 out of my 3 feeds popping up correctly. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this guy here, try to find this one, which I can tell is number 2. So already I'm troubleshooting, why is this TV not popping up automatically? It is coming in to the converter here. So now I'm thinking it has nothing to do with the converter, but actually something to do with the TV. What I'm going to do is I'm going to restart the converter behind the TV here. So because I was able to troubleshoot the fact that I don't think the problem is with this converter, but I think it's with this one up here, I'm simply going to power cycle this converter and see if I get the signal back to this TV. And I did. So this was really helpful, the fact that I could see the signal coming in here, knowing that I am receiving it. So now I know the problem lies between this guy and the TV, a simple restart of the bidirectional converter, and I'm good to go. Every time I plug an Ethernet cable between both units, these guys are automatically going to know to route SDI 1 to port 1, SDI 2 to port 2, SDI 3 to port 3, and vice versa on the way back. That's super helpful. That makes this a lot more of a plug and play unit, at least when it's configured and I show up on site. So let's get into how I specifically configured these units. All right, so in order to configure these converters here, there's 2 ways. There's using a USB cable and then an Ethernet cable. We're gonna do it via USB-C. So there is a port on the front of this guy here, and you'll simply plug in your USB cable to the front and then plug your USB cable into your computer. So now that we have the USB plugged in, we need some software to be able to talk to this unit. So that is going to be the Blackmagic converter software. So go ahead over to the Blackmagic website, go ahead to support, and then you're going to go to broadcast converters. And right now, the best version is the 9.0 update. You can go ahead and click download. I already have it here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. So the converter is going to pop up automatically. So go ahead into settings. I'm going to touch on labels in a second, but first I'm going to go to setup. So here under setup, I uncheck the set date and time automatically. This is because I'm not running this through a network switch. This won't actually be connected to the internet, so I don't want it trying to search around and have any sort of difficulties there, so I just turn that off altogether. We're doing a direct connection from this unit to the other via Ethernet cable. The other thing I made sure to do is put in a static IP. I want these things to have a specific IP address every time they turn on so they know how to talk to each other. The IP address I did by default was just 10.0.0.10. That's fine, nothing crazy there. I gave it an IP address of 255.255.0.0. Again, this is a closed network. I'm not worried about anything else on the network connecting to it. If we're running this through a router or a 10 gig network switch, maybe like a Netgear or something like that, then this would change. I wouldn't have these exact settings, but for this direct connection, this is perfectly fine. Then the gateway 10.0.0.1. You need to make sure that the IP address of these guys do not match exactly. The gateway should match, but the actual IP address should not match exactly. I did enable the via USB and Ethernet connection, but I really only plan on using this via USB. Then I set my stream addresses. So this is important. These need to be different between the 2 units. I just did something simple that I could remember, 10.0.0, and then I said first unit and IP10, so 110. Same thing for the second one, 10.0.0.120. Again, the second stream, 10.0.0.130. I just spaced them out a little bit. Whole numbers makes it easy to remember. And then let's talk about the inputs and outputs naming convention. Again, I did this just to eliminate confusion between the 2 units because by default, they're going to have the exact same labels. So this is SDI 1A in, 2A in, 3A in, my first unit. Again, something different between the 2. Go to outputs and I have my SDI 110, 120, 130, which lines up with my IP addresses 110, 120, 130. So that is my system here. I'm gonna click save. Let's go check out the other unit to see the settings I did for that guy. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my USB cable here, and it pops right up. So I'm going to go into my stage box here, and I'll actually go ahead and label this as stage, and I'll set that. So over here on this guy under my setup, I gave it a slightly different IP address. So this is 10.0.0.200. Notice the first 2 to 3 numbers are all the exact same, 10.0.0. But the last number is different. That's important. When you're dealing with IP addresses and networks, you don't want things to have the exact same IP because then they can't tell themselves apart from other devices on the network. So then similar subnet mask here so they can talk to each other well. Same exact gateway so they both know where they're supposed to be looking. All right, now it comes down to the streams. So these are the streams coming from this guy to front of house. I can't have them be the exact same as the streams coming this way or else it's not going to work. Everything's going to get confused. So I gave it 10.0.0.2. Again, my second unit stage, 10. So 210 for this guy going that way, that's stream number 1. Then I have 220 and 230. So that is the 3 streams coming from here over that way. If I'm using more than just these 2 converters, if I let's say have 6 of them, because you can set these up as basically a digital video hub, which is really cool. But for now, I'm going to be using it just to get from point A to point B and back with a single dedicated line, nothing else on that line. So these IP addresses are fine, but when we get into more complex systems, these may change. And then let's go ahead into my inputs and outputs labels. So SDI 1B in, SDI 2B in, SDI 3B in, labels for this guy. Then I go to my outputs, SDI 210, 220, 230. Again, these don't really mean anything besides just being different from each other so I can identify what's happening. That helps a lot during troubleshooting and setting this guy up. So that's it for what you do on the computer. Now let's take a look for what I actually set up on the physical unit itself. On my stage box here, I'm going to go to menu and then I'm going to set my input. So my input for SDI1 is going to be SDI1A in. We notice that label is coming from front of house, so that is a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and click set, and then I can go down to the second one and set that to number 2, and then I can go over here to number 3 and set that to be number 3. So I already had this fully configured, but notice I'm just doing a one-to-one connection. SDI 1, 2, and 3 is the same thing as SDI in coming at front of house 1, 2, and 3 respectively. There is nothing you set for your outputs streaming from here that is all set up, but you can go through and change IP addresses and things like that in this unit if you had to, so that could be useful when you're on site. And if you need to do a factory reset completely, you'd have to retype in all these numbers on here, which wouldn't be that fun to do. So I'm just going to leave all that off. And then over here at the front of house unit, I can see that my SDI 1, 2, and 3 is coming from SDI 1B, 2B, and 3B, which we know is from stage. So that is the settings I have on this guy here. And I can confirm that by being able to see the different inputs coming from stage. And if I double click, I can see the inputs I'm sending to stage. So really nice way to troubleshoot and confirm what I want to see. So now I'm going to do a setup that is more realistic to an actual conference, using this as a realistic stage box with the ATEM SDI Extreme ISO. Let's set it up. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up my multi-view here so I can start to see all the feeds I have coming in and out. So I'm going to take output 1, always output 1, because these guys here, I can full screen this guy if I'm checking focus, if I'm checking if something's in the shot, if I want to make something bigger. These are all going to go to output 1. All right, so now that I have my multi-view up and running, I can reconfigure this however I want. But for now, I'm going to start plugging in some input. So first thing I'll do is I will get my feeds that I'm going to send to the stage. So these are just 3 sources coming from here within the studio, Doesn't really matter which inputs they go into. I'm going to plug them into inputs 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so that is the 3 inputs coming in. Now I'm going to start plugging in my actual stage box. So I have these nice little 3-foot, really thin SDIs here. I'm going to plug 3 inputs coming from stage into my system. And 6, so I have 4, 5, and 6 coming from stage into me. That's great. Finally, I'm going to plug in my 3 lines. And so I have 3 more SDI outs. That's why I think this switcher is really great for this type of use case, because I have 3 SDIs left, 2, 3, and 4, back of my ATEM Extreme here. And I'm going to plug them in to the 1, 2, and 3 going to the system up there. Now, I have certain signals, but not the right signals where I want them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in a laptop and be able to route the correct signals to these outputs from my computer. So let's go ahead and hook that up. All right, I'm going to be using an Ethernet cable to do this control. So Ethernet goes into the back of the ATEM Extreme, and then Ethernet is going to come all the way over here into my dongle. Plug that in. So now that I have control over my ATEM, what I'm going to do is start routing the correct feeds to the correct locations. So now I'm able to send the laptop feed I'm getting from stage coming into the system, route it back out through here to the projectors or TVs, whatever's on the side. In fact, if I wanted to use my super source, I could even do this a different way. So I'm going to go ahead over to my super source here. So now you're able to see exactly what I want up on the video wall, and the confidence monitor can show me the exact same thing I'm showing on the video wall as well. This can all be done with Companion, so I could have a Stream Deck here, and all of this could already be built out, so it's just one button clicks the whole way. But this is more like a conference where you can go up on stage and give a real-time demo of how all of this actually is working. So I can be up on stage giving a real demo of how all this works, all using the system you have there. One Ethernet coming from that system up on stage and getting all these different feeds coming in. That's pretty impressive. So with all of this, we have one last test to do, and that is to test the latency of this guy. So what I'm going to do is set up a latency test right here using the ATEM SDI Extreme. All right, so this is a really interesting latency test. So this is the source, goes into the ATEM SDI Extreme. This monitor here is a direct output from the SDI Extreme. This monitor up here is also a direct output from the SDI Extreme. You can see that these two are very much in sync. This line over here is coming all the way from the stage box. So we're going from here, converting to Ethernet, over to the stage box, doing the conversion back to SDI, and then coming into this monitor here. And you can see that we are a little behind, but not much. Really, really hard to notice, but definitely enough of a difference that you can if you're really looking for it. So that could prove to be a slight audio sync issue. Again, most people aren't going to notice, but that is the amount of delay you are getting from the direct connection. And then if we look at it compared all the way up to the video wall here, this is what we would be seeing. So that is the test there, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This type of latency here, it's definitely enough to be somewhat concerned about, but for most of what we do, if we're not doing actual iMag, if we're just playing back videos, if we're just doing laptop presentations up on screens, doing a motion backdrop, this type of latency isn't going to matter. If we really do get into iMag, yes, this type of latency can definitely add up, especially when you start adding on the camera delay and things like that. So I don't know that I'd use this for every single situation, but I definitely use it for a lot. This would help in a lot of conference settings, being able to run these feeds up. Plus, if I really had an iMag feed, I don't know that I'd trust a single Ethernet no matter what. I'd probably have at least 2 types of these units, or what I'd do is I'd run one of these units and then a single SDI line for my iMag screens. That might be a really good compromise. So now I'm only running 2 lines instead of what could be 6 or 7 lines. That is the test there. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope that's useful. And these are the converters right there. They're pretty good. Definitely had a little bit of hiccups setting everything up, but once it was configured, once I actually figured out how to use it, factory reset it a couple times, updated the firmware, etc., we were good to go. So very excited to use these guys on my next event. And with that, thanks for watching. Have a good one. And real quick, I did want to mention that there's another solution if you wanted a 4K model or just something other than the Blackmagic converter, which is the BirdDog 4K Quad. This unit has 4 SDIs in and out. And although you can't do 3 feeds back and forth, you could do 2 4K feeds back and forth. Currently, that unit's priced around $2,000 per unit. So with the Blackmagic unit only being about $600, you're getting 3 feeds in each direction for $1,200 versus 2 feeds in each direction for about $4,000 plus. So take that for what you will, but just figured I'd mention other solutions that you could use to do something similar to the stage box approach, and I'm sure there's a lot others out there, NDI being a great other solution if you're not into the Blackmagic ecosystem. Thanks.